One of the most important of the D-Day objectives was the swift capture of the city of Caen, 9 miles inland from Sword and Juno beaches. Caen sits astride the Orne River and the Caen Canal, as well as being an important regional road and rail centre. Where the Americans landed further west, the Norman countryside was difficult terrain, consisting of bocage country, small fields, sunken lanes, and very tall and thick ancient hedgerows. But the terrain south of Caen was flat and clear, perfect for both tanks and the construction of Allied airfields to support the French campaign. It was therefore vital that General Montgomery's 21st Army Group seize and hold Caen shortly after landing, and it was equally imperative that the Germans prevented him. The British 3rd Infantry Division had landed at Sword Beach on the 6th of June, with the intention to seize Caen that day, an ambitious undertaking. If they couldn't take it, their orders were to dig in and prevent the Germans from launching a counterattack towards the coast from the Caen area. On D-Day itself, German resistance at Sword and Juno beaches was stiffer than expected. The British and Canadian troops had to fight for several villages behind the beaches, slowing their advance on Caen. German artillery fire was very heavy against the beach exits, complicating the advance further. However, a German counterattack failed to materialize. The 3rd Infantry Division was then slowed up by determined German resistance at strong points Daimler, Hillman, Morris and Rover. Hillman covered the approaches to Caen and held out until the 7th of June. The defence at Hillman brought the Germans enough time to disengage the 21st Panzer Division from fighting British paratroopers of the 6th Airborne Division on either side of the River Orne and concentrate against stopping the 3rd Infantry Division. The first British attempt to capture Caen was Operation Perch. On the 10th of June, Montgomery ordered Caen taken in a pincer movement. In the east, the 51st Highland Division would cross the Orne and assault Cagny, 6 miles southeast of the city, while in the west, the famed Desert Rats, the 7th Armoured Division, would cross the River Ordon, capture Evrecy and Hill 112. But stiff resistance by the Panzer Lehr Division and part of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend caused a delay. On the 12th of June, Operation Perch was finally launched, but the Highlanders were stopped by the 21st Panzer Division. The combat was intense from village to village, farmhouse to farmhouse.
We had to fight for every bloody field. It was the same each time. You crawl on your belly, keeping your backside down like you'd been told, chuck in a few hand grenades, then rush them. Sometimes they killed us, but we were killing more of them. The trickiest part was the farms. They were regular little jerry fortresses. If we couldn't manage them on our own, then we'd have to wait while the company commander called back for artillery support. The Navy was still with us too, chucking in shells ahead of us.
But on the British right flank, a hole had appeared in the German line following the disintegration of the German 352nd Infantry Division. The 7th Armoured Division was ordered to exploit the 7.5-mile wide gap, seize Villers-Bocage and flank the Panzer Lehr Division. But this move failed with heavy casualties. A fresh operation was planned to seize Caen. British infantry managed to take a series of villages near Caen, preparatory to Operation Epsom on the 26th of June.
We didn't think we'd spend 15 days in the same field outside Caen, with the wood behind us and the Germans in another wood half a mile in front of us, and a little empty valley in between, each side mortaring each other all the time. Just meant you had to live in a slit trench, and you got into a routine. You know, stand through from 4:30 to 5:30, then 2 hours wait for breakfast. Came up fairly hot. Tin bacon or sausage, tea, of course biscuits. We'd been living on compo food since D-Day. It was good food, but, well, you know, you got tired of it. I'd have given a lot for a slice of fresh bread and butter or a cup of fresh tea. 15 days is a long time to stay in one place and be mortared.
Epsom was a massive undertaking, supported by 736 artillery guns, warships and aircraft. The 15th Scottish Division and the 31st Tank Brigade made some progress, overcoming parts of the German outpost line. Over 2 days of hard fighting, a small bridgehead was secured over the Orne, but counterattacks by the 1st SS Panzer Corps were strong. The British 8th Corps managed to advance 6 miles before the Germans stopped them. Though costly, the British had ensured that no German counterattack would reach the beaches, and almost all the Panzer forces in France were engaged against them rather than American forces, aiding the eventual US First Army breakout, Operation Cobra. Between the 26th and the 30th of June 1944, the British suffered 4,078 casualties containing Caen, the Germans losing 3,000 men and 126 tanks.
We had to stay there and give as good as we got, even if we couldn't give better.
Montgomery's next attempt to seize Caen was codenamed Operation Charnwood. British tanks would charge through the city to capture ridges south, opening the way for the British Second Army to advance on the town of Falaise. On the 7th of July, Allied bombers were supposed to bomb German positions before Caen. However, most of them dropped their bombs long into the city itself, fearful of hitting close-by British and Canadian forces. 2,000 tons of Allied bombs fell on the city, reducing it to ruins. Then, on the 8th of July, the ground attack proceeded behind a rolling barrage fired by 656 guns. By the evening of the 8th, British troops had reached Caen's outskirts. The shattered 12th SS Panzer Division fought a desperate rearguard, then withdrew over the Orne River bridges. Early on the 9th, British troops entered Caen and Canadians captured Carpiquet Airfield after a stiff fight with its SS defenders. Moving through Caen, British infantry reached the north bank of the Orne, where they found most of the bridges either blown or completely blocked by rubble. The British now tried to push over the river against the Germans. Operation Jupiter began on the 10th of July, but Tiger tanks picked off the advancing Churchill and Sherman tanks. The worst fighting raged over Hill 112, and the 9th SS Panzer Division Hohenstaufen was rushed forward to contain the British advance, which is what the Allies wanted to happen. Bottle up as much German armour as possible around Caen to aid the US breakout further west. On the 18th of July, the British 7th Corps launched Operation Goodwood. 3 armoured divisions lunged at the Bourgebue Ridge to force the Germans to commit the last of their Panzer Reserve. The Germans stopped the British advance. The British were 7 miles beyond Caen, but took a terrific pounding, suffering over 4,000 casualties and 500 tanks, 36% of all British tanks then in France being knocked out. But the plan worked. The British and Canadian activity had kept 600 German tanks, including all Tiger tank units in France, engaged against them, with only 150 panzers facing the US First Army. Some of the worst fighting was over the 90-foot-high Verrier Ridge, where masses of German tanks and Panzer grenadiers were dug in. During Operation Atlantic, British and Canadian divisions suffered heavy casualties, slogging up the ridge in torrential rain, fighting off counterattacks by 4 SS Panzer divisions. The Canadians were in fact forced back to their start lines. However, on the 25th of July, the Americans, after having captured Cherbourg, launched Operation Cobra, a great success, collapsing the German position in Normandy and leading to an Allied breakout east. The Battle of Caen had absorbed 8 Panzer divisions, 7 German infantry divisions, and 3 heavy Panzer battalions, and severely weakened German forces facing the Americans. But the fighting around Caen was so intense that British and Canadian divisions suffered casualty rates similar to the Third Battle of Ypres in 1917, during the trench warfare of World War I. Britain and Canada suffered about 50,000 casualties during the several battles of Caen, par to the 83,000 British, Canadian and Polish casualties sustained during the Normandy campaign between June and August 1944, a figure which includes 16,000 killed. At least 20,000 French civilians also died during the many operations around Caen, and the city itself was not completely rebuilt until the mid-1960s. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share. You can also visit my new audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. And also, if you would like, help support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.